Here he is, Tom Leykis.
Thank you for tuning into the Tom Leykis Show. This is where America gets together to talk about the issues you really care about. It's a different kind of a radio talk program. We're the radio talk show that is not hosted by a right-wing wacko or a convicted felon. No. I'm your host. Write down our toll-free telephone number. You're going to need it. It's 1-800-5800-TOM. 1-800-5800-866. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for being part of our program. We appreciate it. David Letterman has had a baby with his girlfriend, Regina Lasco. Did you see this? Baby weighed in at 9 pounds, 11 ounces, 21 inches long, and he's naming him after his father, Harry. Now, I don't like this. I'm going to tell you why I don't like this. David Letterman is 56 years old. And he's not only 56 years old, but he just had quadruple bypass surgery. And on top of that, the man who was the baby was named after, Harry Joseph Letterman, the father of David Letterman, he died at 57 years old. So longevity does not run in the Letterman family. I happen to believe that if you are collecting Social Security when your kid is in high school, you're too old to be having a baby. Period. I think it's selfish and pretty outrageous. I mean, imagine this. David Letterman will be 65 years old on his kid's 8th birthday. When his kid is 13, he'll be 70. When his kid graduates high school, he'll be 75. That's if he lives that long. This is ridiculous. And he's not the only one who's done it. We talked in the past about Tony Randall, who had a kid at 77 years old. These people just don't give a rat's ass. It's all about the ego. If you ever needed proof that people only have kids because of the ego, here is your proof right here. Right here, right here. Somebody having a kid at 57 years old. Stop it. You know what? A kid needs a father. And you should not be having kids when you are 56 years old. You shouldn't. His girlfriend is, 43? At least she'll only be 61 when the kid graduates high school. Assuming she lives to 61, which most women do. Now, granted, I don't know that you'll ever get away in this country with making laws against this kind of thing, telling people after a certain age you can't have kids. But I'm saying that we should make it socially unacceptable to do it. A kid deserves to grow up with his own father. And I'm one who's always stood up for this. David Letterman has been seriously ill a couple of times in the last few years. He had a case of shingles that kept him off television for months and months. He was in the hospital. He also had quadruple bypass surgery, and his father died at 57. He's 56. He should not be having kids. It is nothing but an exercise in the ugliest form of ego. I think it's wrong, and I think anybody that age who's having kids is wrong and doesn't give a rat's ass about the kid. It's about their own ego, and it proves what I always say about people who have children. They're only in it for the ego. They're not doing it for the good of the kid, because if you were doing it for the good of the kid, you'd have a kid when you would be alive to see him all the way through high school at the very least, hopefully college, hopefully to their wedding, if they're ever going to get married. You don't be having kids at 56 years old and then think about the rest later. You don't do that. It's outrageous. It's wrong. And it's self-centered and egotistical, don't you think?
Tom. 1-800-5800-TOM. Tom.
I had a girl I was just booty call for 2 weeks, and she calls me up and she says, I wrote my mom a letter and I told her all about you. And I told her, hey, you can write her another one and tell her you got dumped.
The Tom Leykis Show.
Tom Leykis Show at 1-800-5800-TOM. It's Debbie on the Tom Leykis Show.
Hello, Thomas.
Hello, Debbie.
Hey, you know what? I want to tell you, Tom, I've been listening to you for a long time, and so I'm real nervous. It's the first time I've called in. But anyways, I can understand how you say you want it to be socially unacceptable, but how would you, I don't understand how you think you'd go about.
Well, for example, 30 years ago in this country, drunk driving was acceptable. I mean, you may find that hard to believe. But used to be, people would be like, drive carefully, and the penalties for drunk driving weren't that big a deal, and they ran commercials, and they made it socially unacceptable to drive drunk.
Yeah, and the women from MAD also had a big thing to do with that.
All right, so we need to make having babies at too old an age socially unacceptable. We need to reinforce the idea that a father is a necessary part of a kid's life.
Absolutely.
And the reason people are doing this is because we have people convinced that you don't need to have a father. But you really do, because many of these single women who say you don't need to have a husband or you don't need to have a father for your kid, these are the same women saying, why can't I find a good man?
They're the same ones on welfare also.
You can't find a good man because guys are pussies these days because they've been raised by single mothers. We have to stop this cycle.
Well, what does that have to do with being making it socially acceptable?
We need to tell the David Lettermans of the world that it's wrong to have a child at 56 years old. It's wrong. It's wrong. You are biologically capable of doing it, but it's wrong because the kid deserves to have a father.
Yeah.
We need to look down on that, not praise him, not say, oh, isn't it wonderful he's a father. It's terrible.
I agree with that. Totally, 100%. You need a man and a woman to raise a child. I don't care if it's a male or female that you bring into this world. You need a man and a woman. I have to agree with that. But it was a...
Well, this kid was very unlikely to have a father through 18 years old.
Shut up, Dominic.
So that's my deal, Debbie. Thank you. 1-800-5800-TOM. That's our telephone number. This is Abby on the Tom Leykis Show.
Hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to comment about what you were saying before the commercial break concerning men having babies at 50-some years of age.
Yeah, it's wrong.
Pardon?
It's wrong.
Okay, now you're saying it's wrong because you think men should be there in their child's life.
Right.
Now, are you just saying that for men that have necessarily histories in their family of dying?
No, if David Letterman lives into his 70s, this kid will turn 18 when David Letterman is 75.
Who cares? He has a father in his life.
If his father lives that long. David Letterman's own father only lived to be 56 or 57.
That's not indicative of how old David Letterman is.
Actually, it could very well be a predictor.
It could be.
And David Letterman, by the way, has already had quadruple bypass heart surgery.
Okay, my father's 53 years old. I'm 22. He had me with his first wife. He got remarried 5 years ago and has a 4-year-old son and a 4-month-old daughter.
It's wrong.
It's wrong in your opinion. It's not wrong to the general public.
No, actually, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure the general public has formed an opinion about this. I'm not so sure people have thought this through. And I don't see how you can be so sure of that. Tony Randall, the actor from The Odd Couple, had a kid at 77 years old. That's wrong. It's wrong.
It's not wrong to deprive a child of a life just because his father...
It's wrong to create children at 77. It's wrong. Put a rubber on, Grandpa. Let's go.
Okay, what about the children the fathers who have children in their mid-20s and they die in a car accident when they're 30?
That's not the same. The odds are that a man in his 20s will not die. The odds are that a man in his 56 and has a baby will be dead before the kid's high school graduation. Odds are.
Odds are true, but the child is going to have...
And even if the father lives, he's going to be, with Alzheimer's in a wheelchair? Please.
No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily, but odds are.
I don't believe that.
You don't. So everybody who's 75 is out there throwing footballs, playing catch with their kids, right? Or their grandkids.
No, they're not, but they're still good people, and they're worthy of being
Whether they're worthy of being people or whether they're worthy of a seat on the bus has nothing to do with whether they should be procreating.
Well, that may be your opinion.
So what? Do you think 75-year-olds should be having babies? 80, 90? How far do you think this should go?
The chances of a 75-year-old even being able to have a child.
You're wrong. Charlie Chaplin impregnated his, I don't know how many, third, fourth, fifth wife at 80. 80.
Okay. There are
Pablo
men
Picasso, same thing.
Children.
Do you think that's reasonable?
Pardon?
Do you think that's reasonable?
I think if they're able to be a good father to their child...
I don't necessarily believe that somebody who's 80 is going to be a good father, or 75.
Okay, this is the way I see it. There are thousands of children in this world who have fathers that don't give a crap.
That doesn't justify being 75 and having a baby.
So okay, let me ask you this. Would you rather have a 56-year-old man have a child or a 25-year-old man who's a deadbeat?
Neither one.
His wife?
Neither one. Neither one. But I will tell you this. One thing is very likely, that the 56-year-old who has a child will not be at that kid's high school graduation, and it stinks.
I agree with you, but I would rather have a 56-year-old father who loves me and who cares for me and raises me well than a 25-year-old father.
Well, again, though, you know what? We don't have to choose.
Right, but the truth is, if you look at statistics, there are lots more of these 25-year-olds.
No, what statistics are you looking at? Now I'm calling you on it. What statistics are those?
I don't have any specific statistics.
No, you don't. So don't start even mentioning the word statistics. You know nothing about statistics.
My point was,
Your point was you claimed there were statistics that proved your point, and there aren't any. And if there are, you've never read them.
Sit there and say that 56-year-old men who have children.
The odds are, if you're 56, you'll be dead by the kid's high school graduation. That's the odds.
All right.
How many people live beyond 75 years old?
Lots.
Yeah, how many?
My grandfather.
The majority?
My other grandfather.
The majority?
I would say so.
Really? And what's the quality of life for someone who's 75 years old these days?
If they still have the capacity to be a father.
Yeah, but what are the odds? Don't you think the odds are diminished at that point?
To an extent, but I don't.
To an extent.
Wrong.
I see. Well, why don't 75-year-olds start having children? Why don't 95-year-olds start having children? That's okay with you?
Because it's impossible for them to.
No, it's not impossible, dear. A man can procreate until he's dead.
Generally, but unless the medical issues come into play there.
Unless a man has a prostate cancer, he can continue to procreate. It's not like a woman. Men do not have a biological time clock. Women have it, not men.
No. Then why do you think men become impotent?
Dear, again, let me repeat to you. They become impotent because of prostate cancer.
Not all the time.
Generally.
That's
the most common form of impotence. So if a man does not have prostate cancer, he can still procreate.
Okay.
Hang on. Jonathan, what did you want to say to Abby here?
I just got to say, Tom, that, she's talking about statistics. The statistics are that men die in their early 70s and late 60s for the world. If these men are going to be having babies at 50 years old, 56 years old, 58 years old, what are the odds they're going to live for the kid to even be 15? I mean, let's just look. That's a statistic.
Especially a man who had quadruple bypass heart surgery.
No kidding. I mean, what? I mean, my grandfather is in his early 60s, and actually he's on his deathbed right now because of something like that. I mean, the statistics show, if you want a statistic, that the man will not be alive by the time that kid is 16 or 18-year-old. That is a statistic.
Okay, well, what about the point where the child, so this child's father dies at the age of 15, when this child is 15 years old. He's going to have a better 15 years of his life with a father who loves him and cares for him than a 35-year-old man whose deadbeat father died.
Like those are the only two choices.
Oh, give me a break. You know what I have to say to that is that anybody responsible, anybody who is able to have a child should be responsible enough to know if they should have one or not, regardless of age or what type of person they are or anything. They should know if they're able to raise a kid or not.
Well, then why is the truth that there are more of those deadbeat fathers out here than old men?
You don't have any. You don't have. By the way, you don't have any evidence of that. You're taking that statistic out of your ass and creating it out of nowhere.
I mean, that just shows you that people are irresponsible. That's all it shows you. I mean, it's the same either way. If there's deadbeat fathers, there's bound to be several 70-year-old fathers, of people who are, just into their teens. I mean, you don't know anymore that there's going to be people that are deadbeats than there are that, a bunch of old guys having kids. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Jonathan, thank you. Cindy, what do you think about this? Abby's on the phone with you.
I am a preschool teacher, and I cannot imagine one of the parents of my kids actually being that age. I think I would have to teach them more than I would the kids about how to relate and what they need to know. And I understand the other caller saying that not to make, not to bring a life into the world because of that. But you know what? At 56, you have a choice, and you've made that choice, and that's what's really sad about it. I think it's really unfortunate.
What choice did that man make at 56 years old?
Well, if he's 56 and choosing to have a child, I mean, do you have any idea what a 4-year-old needs? I mean, and
I have a 4-year-old brother.
Okay, well, a 4-year-old brother is different than being a parent. If you're with them 24 hours a day and you are their sole provider and what they need, they have 50% of everything that they have to learn by 5. And what if that parent isn't there, is too old to help them learn?
Okay.
That's awful. That's sad.
I agree with you. For those men who are that age who choose to have babies who cannot care for their child. There are men out there. Hold on, wait a minute. There are men out
By the way,
there.
we see why Abby's so upset. How old are your parents that you have a 4-year-old brother?
My dad is 53.
53. That's why you're so personally upset about this.
I am. And I may not be making my point 100% clear. I do agree with you that there are some
Your dad should put a glove on it.
There are some men out there at my father's age and older that should not be having children. And that's because of these conditions like you mentioned before, health-wise and mentally. My father, however, is in good health.
But you don't know what his health will be in 5 years. My dad was in good health at your dad's age, and he was dead at 63. You just don't know.
You don't know for anybody, though. That doesn't matter.
No,
what age you are.
Yes, it does matter. People in their 50s and 60s more likely to have cancer, more likely to have heart attacks, more likely to die from any number of illnesses or just become sick and be debilitated. Much more likely. Diabetes, prostate cancer, the list goes on.
Okay,
You're telling me a 20-year-old is as likely to have these problems as a 60-year-old? You're wrong.
I think classes now. There are special classes that they have for grandparents that are trying to do this job. They can't do it. It's too hard. They have to have
some, not for all.
But they're the majority in Orange County.
But you don't know until they get to their 60s. You don't know what they're going to be. And the fact is, the odds are they're going to have a lot harder time than someone who's in their 30s or 40s.
And the people that are going to be affected are the 4-year-olds, the little kids that are going to lose out.
Abby doesn't care. She's all in favor of the ego of these old people who want to crank out kids. Like her father. Mr. Ego, Abby's father. Mr. Ego Trip, your father. Please. Disgusting.
It's the Tom Leykis Show. This is the Tom Leykis Show.
At 1-800-5800-TOM, that's our telephone number. Thank you for tuning in. By the way, having nothing to do with anything, I was just watching Channel 9 here in Los Angeles. Channel 9 is the home of Lakers and every syndicated television program that wasn't snapped up by the other channels. Well, they had a promo for Family Feud. I know the promo, they misspelled the word feud. Do they have spell check over there at Channel 9? What's the deal? You got to be kidding me. How hard is it to check those things? Get me Don Corsini on the phone. We'll find out how they misspelled the word feud in the Family Feud promo. It's 1-800-5800. Yeah, next time you watch Channel 9, if you're here in SoCal, right at the end of the spot, it says Family Feud, 6:30 p.m. They spelled feud, F-U-E-D. Come on. This is big-time television, for God's sake. What are you doing? Please. What do you think this is, Boise? Let's get with the program here. Jesus Christ, that's embarrassing. When you realize the same company that owns Channel 9 also runs this piss-poor outfit, they probably cut the spell check budget over there or something. Or they probably don't pay enough to hire people with high IQs. I don't know what the problem is. It's unbelievable. Amazing. 1-800-5800. Yeah, come on. You can spell the name of the show right. Come on. All right, we asked 100 people. How do you spell the word feud? No, not F-U-E-D. No. 1-800-5800-TOM is our telephone number. Let's say hello here to Elizabeth on the Tom Leykis Show.
Hi, Tom.
Hi.
How's it going?
Great.
I know I'm probably the exception to the rule on this one, but I think it's more about parental responsibility. I mean, my dad was 55 when he had me. He was 58 when he had my little brother. He saw all three of us through high school. He saw my little brother get married. I mean,
you're lucky.
He coached my little brother's Little League games all the way up until high school.
I understand, but it's called luck.
It is called luck, but a lot of it, I mean...
Why take a chance like that?
Well, I think you take a chance with a lot of things. I mean, marriage these days, what do you always say is always one ends in divorce? You're lucky, like 1 out of 2 marriages end in divorce. It's like
right.
You may not have your dad around even if he's, living, walking...
Yeah, but the thing is, he's still alive, even if he's not living at your house, okay? And you can still see him, and he's still your dad, and he's still there.
Yeah, but if he's an ass, then, what's,
dear, if your dad's an ass, it's because your mom got turned on by asses.
That may be.
I am so tired of hearing about dads who are deadbeats, dads who are addicts, dads who are jerks. And we hear this all from the women who willingly married these guys and then said, stick it in here, buddy, go for it.
I absolutely agree with you. And I'm
tired of these bitches complaining about the bad men they chose because that's what turned them on. And then it's like the man's fault.
No, I agree with that. I'm not disagreeing with you on that fact, but I'm not saying you were talking about making it socially.
Having sex with a bad man and having babies with bad men is also a bad thing to do. But having sex with a guy who might be a doddering old fool or a victim of Alzheimer's disease or cancer or who knows what, brain tumor, heart attack, whatever.
But that's not always the case, Tom.
But you don't know until you get there. Do you understand? You don't know until you get there. Your dad could have had a stroke and died. You don't know.
Absolutely, but you could have had a car accident when you're 30.
Yeah, you could, but the odds of having a stroke when you're 80 are much greater than the odds of getting hit by a car when you're 20.
Of course.
So that's what I'm saying. You don't know until you get there. It's very easy for you to be so smug and call up here and say, well, my dad did it. Well, guess what? You were very, very lucky.
I was very lucky. I do consider
and your dad took a major chance, and it was an egotistical, foolish chance he took. What was it? He married to a trophy wife or something?
Falling in love with my mother and having 3 children in wedlock. They were married till he passed away, and having 3 children.
Well, how were they married? 30 years? I mean, come on. Your mom was a trophy wife. There's no way your dad was married for 80 years. Come on.
No, my mom is 55.
Yeah, well, there we go. That's how that happened. So your dad had a few bucks, and he married a trophy wife. That's what happened.
So it ended up with a happy story.
Because you were lucky. But that doesn't mean we should be encouraging men to do this.
Well, we shouldn't be encouraging a lot of things.
Right, and this is one of the things we should be discouraging.
I don't agree, Tom. I guess because
you think we should be encouraging it. So do you think when I'm 60 I should start procreating? Would you think that would be a good idea?
If you fell in love with a woman and you changed all the viewpoints that you have about having children and you fell in love with a woman...
So you think that's a good idea? You think that's a good idea? You think that's... My dad died at 63. You think it's a good idea to do that?
Of course.
Right.
I do. I agree.
Even if I might be dead by the time the kid hits junior high school, you think it's a good idea?
I do think so. If you were going to love that child and provide for that child, regardless of whether or not your life expectancy...
So being around is irrelevant. You don't actually have to be there.
What do you mean? You don't actually have to be there?
Oh, yeah. I could just be like some faded photograph or something. That would be okay.
You know, I would much rather choose a father who loved me and raised me and helped me with
Well, you know what? If your father dies when you're 5 years old, your father didn't raise you.
Well, of course not, but my father did. I'm saying.
Because you're lucky.
Because I am lucky, but you...
But it could have just as easily gone the other way. Your dad could have had Alzheimer's disease and then been a doddering old fool. Could have been. And the odds are much greater that it would happen to him than to a 25-year-old.
Well, Tom, you know, if you want to play the odds game, when you started your radio career, everyone told you the odds were against you. You bucked the odds and you were a success.
I did indeed. But you know what? If I failed, the only person who would be affected is me, not somebody else. And that's the difference. I took a chance where the only victim would be myself, not another person. Your dad spun the wheel of fortune and had no idea what was going to happen. And if he spun and lost, you would be the victim, not him, you. That's the difference. Do you understand the difference?
I understand the difference.
Good. The Tom Leykis Show at 1-800-5800-TOM. That's our telephone number. It's Mark on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
Hello, Tom.
Hello, Mark.
How are you?
Do you care?
Absolutely.
I'm doing great.
By the way, the Lakers are up by 15 in the first quarter.
Well, that game's on tape. They're running it on delay, so there's more that's happened in that game that you haven't seen yet.
Yes, sir, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
I have to share an experience. I've listened to you for many years now, and long-time listener, first-time caller.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a man of 58 years old.
Yeah.
And we finally got a man on this topic. We've listened to all the women. Now let's have a man talk about it.
Yes, let's.
And it's you and I.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, I met my wife 10 years ago. She was, at the time, 30 years old. She's 40 now. I'm 58. I'll be 59 next month. And we've been trying to have children. Unfortunately, not by my reasoning, but by hers, we can't have children. I'm 58, yet I feel, and I heard what you said about your dad. Your dad died at, 62, 63?
63, and 10 years before, everybody thought he was the healthiest guy on earth.
Yeah, I play basketball, I play football, I run in the street, I run track.
My dad was a Golden Gloves boxer. I mean, my dad was like Mr. Jump Rope. But he had no idea he was going to get cancer.
Right, and I don't have that. I don't have anything else, but like you said, it could happen. And I do agree partly with, I'm not 20 years old, I'm 58 years old, I understand that. And what does my child have to look forward to at graduation? Hopefully
changing your colostomy bag.
Yeah, hopefully a healthy father. If not, my dad lived to be 92 years old. My wife would love a child. She was never married. I was never married. And it's something that we would like dear to our heart to have a child, and I think I would be a good father.
Yeah, but you see, what you're proving my point. I'm not being mean about it. I'm just saying,
yes,
all you care about is you. You care about what you want. The quality of the kid's life with a father who can't play ball with him or take him fishing is secondary to your desire to do something that's all about your ego. That's what it's all about.
Yes, and to say now at 58, yeah, I can do that. What am I going to be at? Let's say he's 15. What am I, 58, 68?
You'll be 73?
Right.
And you're going to be tossing the football around? I don't think so.
Right. On the second hand, what do you do with a woman that would love to have a child? She's with you. She loves you. And she would like a child. What do you do with
I
that?
think that she also doesn't care about the quality of life of that child. And she also has bought into our society's ridiculous idea that a child does not need a man to grow up around.
Yeah, that's possible. But still, you have to understand two people. And
yeah, but she doesn't care. Like, if you die, she doesn't care that your boy would have to grow up without you. She doesn't care. She only cares about fulfilling herself.
Yeah.
And now,
Well,
if you'll concede that, okay, I'll buy in. But the thing is, I always say on the air that having a child is an ego trip for people, and they all get very indignant about it. But it's true, and this proves it.
well, the one thing I'm not indignant about it or being selfish. What on the other terms, in this instance, my wife cannot have a child. I can. We've tried simulation. It won't work. I've been proven that my sperm is good. Now, how good it is at 58, who knows? However, what's the problem if you adopted a child, say, 11 or 12 years old?
Well, if you adopted a child 11 or 12 years old, that's different from having a baby.
Exactly.
So maybe that's what you do.
Okay.
But, of course, again, having a child for most people is the ego trip. I want to know what my baby would look like.
Mm-hmm.
I would have an intelligent baby. I would have an attractive.
Absolutely.
We are so attractive. We would have the most attractive kid in the world. It's all about ego. Now, if you adopted a 12-year-old kid, that's a whole different story.
Now, another thing. How old are you, Tom? 47?
I'm 47.
47. And I know you have a girlfriend. Let's say, I know you've been married 4 times. Let's say you don't get married. Your girlfriend wants to have a baby. At 47, that's still not too bad. But let's say you're with that same girl or another girl in another 5 years. You're 52. Would you want to have a baby?
I think that's too late.
Good.
I think it's too late, and it's unfair, and I think kids deserve to have a father.
And I know you like kids. You've always said you like kids.
I do. I've never had kids, and I've never had an interest in having kids, but I do believe kids need to have a father. Hang on a second, Mark. Don, what did you want to say to Mark?
Hey, Mark, listen, I was the product. I'm 50 years old today, but I was the product of a 43-year-old mother and a 57-year-old father. And I'm going to tell you something. Tom is so right on track with this. Everybody listening that wants to have kids after the age of 50, you got to hear what I got to say. Because I want to tell you something. All through junior high school and all through high school, I was embarrassed. I loved my parents to death, but I was embarrassed to take them to school for parents' night, for sports, for all of the things because they were old in comparison to all of my friends' parents. And if you don't think that affects a kid, I played sports. I played every sport there was, and my father was always tired from work because he was in his 60s by the time I got there. He was always tired, never went to any games. Everybody wondered if I even had a father. And I'm going to tell you, the people that say, oh, my dad did this, my dad did that, he still can't do the things that a young father can do. And if you go to put a kid into this world, in that environment, shame on you.
Yeah, I can appreciate your thoughts. That's good reasoning. And maybe it'll help me clear up my theory on what I want to do as far as having children.
Listen, if you want to have children, go out and adopt some of these kids that are 13, 14, 15 years old that need a home. Go, if you want to love somebody, go adopt somebody. But don't bring a baby into the world that you cannot do what that kid needs. And you may love him to death, and you may have all the greatest intentions. But that kid is still going to, inside, wish that he had a younger parent for the rest of his life. Now, both of my parents are gone. If they'd had me when they were younger, they probably would still be around to see my kids, but they're not. So my kids are growing up without any grandparents. Think about that fact.
Wow. Don, thank you for that. Let me get Amber in here. Amber, what did you want to say to Mark?
Hi, he says his sperm works so great, I think he needs his head checked. Because his head obviously needs to catch up with his sperm. Because at 58, having a kid, how can you provide for your child if you're dead? That makes no sense. And you have these women calling you, and they're like, oh, well, my daddy this, my daddy that. Your daddy's dead. You know, I'm 23. Thankfully, I still have my father. My parents had, me at a young age. But it makes no sense to have a child at 58, and he says, oh, well, I can do it and my wife can't. Well, thank heavens your wife can't, because you're going to be in a wheelchair trying to chase your child around. It makes no sense.
No, I don't think so. Are you married?
No, I'm not. I have a boyfriend.
You have a boyfriend.
Yeah, well, he's 25. He has 2 kids. It's...
2 kids already at 25? Unbelievable.
Tom Leykis. 1-800-5800-TOM. 1-800-5800-866.
Well, you guys are perverted.
You think so? You like it, too. You're probably moist right now just thinking about it.
Oh, I don't think so. Not at all.
Really? erect nipples. I'll bet you.
It's the Tom Leykis Show.
Send us an email. Our email address is my name. It's Tom at blowmeuptom.com. Tom at blowmeuptom.com.